Hi, Ray. I didn't see him. Yeah.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. This is the September General Member Meeting of the Rotary E-Club of USA and Southern USA and Caribbean. And I'm Alicia A.Bostdorff-Miller. I'm the president of the club. And beside me is my husband, Will, who is our membership chair. And we have a few other members from our club on, David Mountford, Brad Robinson, David Kroner, Andrew Bernstein, Ray Cornelius. We usually have a couple members on, also on. I know though for a fact that at least one got inundated with this last hurricane that went through and actually hit his area in Pensacola at its Cat 2 hurricane. So we're not expecting him, but that's okay. He can watch the recording later. This month, we are welcoming again our lovely member, Susanne Nielsen, who's a past president of the club, and she is going to take us on a lovely trip to Paris. So
a virtual trip, I have to tell
yes,
you
a
all.
virtual
I'm so sorry.
But you know what? It's wonderful that we have this opportunity to do so, because right now still not many are, if any, are traveling. So go ahead.
And I have to tell you that Paris is again a place of concern. A friend of mine just talked to me yesterday and said she was on the banlieue, on the outskirts, and she, you know, her family is in the countryside. Her son lives there with his family, and she said, you know, you don't want to go into the city at this point. So hopefully we can dream about the past and the future. And
well, it seems that on the news this evening, Europe is in trouble again.
Yeah, London, they said England might close its
all of them are right now. They're returned. It seems that they had a slump in June, and they've all come up again.
With the reopening of things.
With the reopening of everything has gone bad. So.
Okay, guys. Okay, guys. All right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let me see that I can share my screen. Can I do that? Let's see. Host disabled participant screen sharing. Here we are again. Hello, Zoom.
I tell you what.
You have to make me a co-host, I think, in your settings is how that works. I think it's per meeting, so.
No, you should be, go ahead, try it now.
Yep, there we are. Okay.
All right.
I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Anne. Let me see that I could make this happen. All right.
Ooh,
Okay.
there we go.
All right. That looks like Paris. Let me just get it to, somewhere is the screen. Here we go. Okay, guys. So happily, I have connections to Paris. I've been a very lucky person in my life because Paris was kind of home. It wasn't where I lived there at age 2. Briefly with my parents. My father worked with NATO then, and at the end of his career in the Foreign Service, in the German Foreign Service, my father was posted. He bought a big fat car wanting to go to America, a lovely Cadillac, and then he was posted to Paris with a Cadillac. That was very funny. And it did get stuck in a park garage once that was going spiral up, and he couldn't go forward or back. And so he left that car in the garage for most of the time, but he did enjoy traveling back and forth to Germany and Switzerland to his children. So he, you know, it was a lovely thing to travel long distance, but it was not very useful in Paris. So when you're in Paris, you at first, if you're a tourist, you take the metro mostly, but there are buses. And that's the nice thing about Paris, is that you can actually do a city tour by just taking the bus system. So my parents did a lot of that, and they of course love to promenade on the Champs-Élysées, as you can see them here. And I love the beefsteaks. I mean, I love eating in Paris, though I don't do a lot of it. I do a lot of walking around and spending time at museums. etc. So that's me. Okay, so we're going to go on so that you know this is how my parents lived there for 18 years at the end of my father's career, and even beyond the end of his career. So just moved in his 80s, moved back to Germany. Let me see that I can, okay. So this is the wonderful Champs-Élysées. Now I've got a lot of pictures. If you have questions, chime in because I can't see all of you. So if you have a question, you might have to say it rather than, you know, just hope that you'll be seen. But do, as I said, do chime in. I know a lot, I don't know everything. And some of you might have been there and know more. The Champs-Élysées is beautifully decorated at Christmas time with lots of lights. You see all the trees and they have a lot of lights on them at night at Christmas time. It's always a nice, I try to do 2 or 3 days when I go there every time I go to Germany, and it's a 4-hour ride from Frankfurt to Paris with the train. And when you are all the way at the end of the Champs-Élysées at the Louvre, you can look back, and what you're seeing there is you're seeing, can you see my cursor? Can everybody see my cursor? Okay, so this is the one arch, the big Arch de Triomphe. This on the right is the Louvre Museum. So we're looking out of the window of the Louvre Museum, and we're looking at La Défense because there's another grand arch that is all the way, this new, popped up in the 80s, district of business, and that's all the way at the end of the other end of the Champs-Élysées. So most tourists go on this end and go through the Tuileries Park, which you see right here at below, and then end up at the museum mostly. Okay. If you're strolling the streets, you know, there's a lot of wonderful things to see, beautiful balconies, beautiful old little columns that, you know, show the newest movies or stars. And the Champs-Élysées has a lot to offer. And in the 19th century, the first malls were the arcades in Paris. And Walter Benjamin wrote a very philosophical book about the arcades. And I don't know if you know about this book, but it's very hard to read. It's very philosophical, as I said, but it does describe in part some of these old passageways, these roofed over parts in between the buildings. And this is the let me see, Passage des Champs-Élysées. And as you can see, there's a happy Starbucks sign right there. So the point was that this was a very old looking building, or in between buildings with stores, and Starbucks replaced the nice Art Nouveau cafe that was there, and now it's all Wi-Fi and all the tourists go there. So, whoops, uh-oh. Okay, now this, I knew this could happen, and I'm hoping that hopefully this is, my problem is that this does not load very well, and I may have to resort to, let me see if I can, I put too many pictures in, and I may have to go back, and I do apologize for this. Let me just for a moment pull up the other one, which is a shorter one, and I'm so sorry about that. I really enjoyed.
You can put water on to boil, hon.
Mary, I think you need to mute yourself. Let me see. Maybe it will come up again. Let me see if this will work. I will try again. Sorry about that. Let me see if I can, if it will recapture. Let's see if it will. Share. Okay. I'm going to try again, hopefully. Come on. Okay. No, it won't. Okay. Yep. When in doubt, we're going to find ourselves the other one. So I apologize for that. Okay. So let me see if I've got the short version. Short version. Okay. So here we are, and we're just going to have to see a few less slides, but that won't be terrible. So, okay. All right. So here we go again. Okay. So this is some of the repeat that some of you know, but it's just, you have 90 slides, it's just too many to put in a PowerPoint. So next time I'll just separate it in two. Anyway, this is Café Georges V. This is also on the Champs-Élysées. And this bridal couple, who knows if they're doing photographs or they just happened in after their wedding. We don't know.
Susan, we can't, I don't.
Oh,
see
you
it
can't
on
see it?
there.
Okay. You're not sharing it? It's not sharing?
We're not on.
Okay, hold on, let me
We
see.
can see it either.
I'm sorry? Yeah, you're right. Let me just escape it. Hold on. Let me find you all again. All right, let me screen share. My apologies. Okay, here we go. This is the, let's see. This is the short version. Okay, we should be, all right, my apologies. All right, we're gonna go up. There we
Okay.
go. Yeah, yeah, okay. All right, we're gonna go up one. Okay, here we go. So I'm sorry. Yes, I should have noticed that you all were gone. Okay, so this is the Café Georges V. The first lesson in my French book was Café Georges V, so I always have to go there at night before I go home and have a coffee. And as I said, the bridal couple, we don't know if they're real or not, but they happened by, and it was kind of amusing. As you can probably see, that the waiters are equally surprised. So there's a lot of flowers in Paris, and you can find them just as you walk by somewhere. Sometimes it almost looks like a flower shop. I have no idea. It doesn't look like there's any indication what it is, but this is the way Paris is. You just around the next corner, there's sometimes a beautiful garden. And then you can, of course, take a little trip to Montmartre. And the Montmartre is here is the view from the Centre Pompidou in the Les Halles in the old market hall area, but looking over the city, you can look in all different directions. And this one is the beautiful Sacré-Cœur Church on the other side. And of course, it's nice to be able to go up there if you are in that area. And as you walk up to the Montmartre, that's where a lot of the good in price hotels are. So I end up usually in that particular area when I'm in Paris, spending some nights there. They have a lot of fabric stores, and it's almost like a bazaar. So it's kind of nice to walk by there and then pick out if you were to sew something. They have any number of things, so costuming and all these things can happen in Paris. And then, of course, you walk up to the church, the Sacré-Cœur, the Sacred Heart Church. And again, it's on the Montmartre. And then a little bit below, you can sit in the cafes. And there's all these artists that want to paint either cartoon you or paint scenes of Paris. And that's kind of fun. And when you walk back down, this is what you see. You look over the city. Yeah, so that's a nice afternoon. I don't know, I apologize. This was not the finished version, so we just have to indulge me with a couple of more pictures than they supposed to be. Okay, this is one of the parks in Paris, and there is a park that I want to recommend to everybody, which is the Parc Bagatelle, and it is in the Bois de Boulogne. It's in the outskirts of Paris, but it is a beautiful, beautiful rose garden, and this is not it, but this is kind of like that with all the roses you'd find in Paris. If you go anywhere, it's not hard to know what's going on in the museums because there are lots of billboards that say, look, there's a Courbet exhibition at the Grand Palais. And so at the end of the Champs-Élysées, you walk down and there's the area of the Grand Palais and the Petit Palais. And so there was at one point this Courbet exhibition I guess at the time it was at the Petit Palais. Okay, this is the Petit Palais, which looks really grand anyway, and it is a museum. It has its own collection, and it also has changing exhibits. And inside it looks like this, very palatial, and a lot of beautiful statuary. And this is then permanent, and you walk through and can see exhibitions. When I was there, I think the last time this was the permanent collection, so I didn't really get to see anything extraordinary that time, but I was at a time when it was kind of summer, I think, and there was not a whole lot going on. Here we are from the bottom, from the park that leads to the museums and to the Arc de Triomphe. You can see that there's a lot of seating and you can sit around the fountains. It's very pretty and a lot of people walk around. And this is a smaller triumphal arch that is closer to the museum. So it looks as grand almost as the big one that has a traffic circle around it, but this is closer to the Louvre. And so a smaller one with a nice view of the museum if you're walking through it to it. So the trick is, this is the IMP pyramid that was very controversial as a new entrance for the museum. It's worked out very well. Underneath are a lot of the entrances to the side buildings, which of course was a palace. This is the Louvre Museum and former palace. And these people, of course, are trying their best to photograph as if they're holding the tip of the pyramid. So this young lady standing there and her hand is pointing up here and they're trying to photograph it from below so that she can look like she's holding that pyramid in her hand. Nice idea. If you come from the metro area, there are two ways to get into the museum. One through the pyramid at the top, which usually has a very long line to go down the escalator into the lower area, or you go from the metro side and you come here and there's an inverted pyramid, which is also glass, and the top here is the street level, and then down here is the actual light that comes, it descends down into the area of the mall. And the mall, you can see here on the right, it says, on the left it says Printemps, which is one of the department stores, and which means spring for those who don't speak French. And then there's other areas with little, souvenirs and all kinds of things, and lots of tourists. And you have to, of course, stand in line. All these people are standing in line here in front of me because they have to go through security check before they are allowed into the actual museum. So there's always a bit of a holdup when you're in these subterranean areas. If you get to the museum inside, there's various permanent exhibits like the Mona Lisa. Here's, there's a sign to the Mona Lisa, and there's a sign to the, let's see, I want to say Samoa, is it Nike, I think, a figure, sort of a headless galleon's figure from a ship. And those are the two things that most tourists want to go see. And this here was an exhibit about lost civilizations, the Hittites, the Aramaic culture, and was very, very fascinating to me because a lot of it does not exist or has been brought to museums, etc. And this is the permanent collection. So you have a lot of paintings from the 19th and 18th and earlier centuries. And this is the Impressionist area. So that looks like a Degas on the back here, and or Renoir, can't remember. So. This was an interesting exhibit. This was Wilfredo Lam, and since I did my thesis on the Cuban artist, this was his biggest Picasso-esque mentor, if you will. Lam was somebody who also, whom he knew personally, and who is one of those people that was in France and in Cuba and continued this dialogue with Cuba after 1959. And so his work is revered in Cuba and abroad, and that makes him a very interesting character. So. This is the apartments of Napoleon III. This was used by the Ministry of, I'm thinking Justice. One of the ministries was using it as their guest rooms. So they were holding formal events in these rooms, and it was then later turned over to the Louvre. So if you go to the third floor of the Louvre, you can actually go into these beautiful Baroque interiors, which then are open to the public, just as in the museum visitors, right? And this is the pyramid in the evening. So it brings forth a lot of people who want to photograph it. As you can see, it has fabulous sunlit vista possibilities, I guess. If you're down in the subway, you know where you are because there are statues in this case of the Egyptian collection of the Louvre, and of course, they're copies, but they're down here in the metro stations. And if you look to the left, the metro station, this one is an unmanned train. This is the.
Saturday?
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Was there a question? Okay, so this is the unmanned station has glass or plexiglass in front of it so that nobody can jump on a train just before it closes. So there's no danger. So the doors open to the public when the train has stopped, and when it starts off, before it starts off, these close with a nice loud hum so that you don't get hurt, as I said, in between the areas of danger when this is an unmanned train and nobody is watching you. So if you want to take a train from the Louvre to the Opera in the evening, the Louvre is open pretty long. It's reopened, I believe, at this point, I think. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But this is the Opera House, and this is the old Opera House. This is the Opera Garnier, and there is also the Bastille Opera, and for a while they separated this Opera House from the new Opera House by only showing dance in the old Opera House. Luckily, though, they have reverted back to also showing opera. So when you buy a ticket, make sure you know what you're going to go see. I say this because I was in Boris Godunov? It was something that had an opera, a theater piece, and also a ballet. So we didn't quite know what we were buying tickets to, and we ended up with a ticket that had half a view. Now, an opera you can listen to, and that's okay. But a ballet, you have to imagine the other half of it because you're only seeing the one side. And so that becomes a very amusing thing. And the gentleman in the loge next to me, who was also in the fourth tier because that was the best of the worst tickets that we could get an hour before the show, was complaining all the way through that his father had a theater in Versailles and he always had the best seats. And of course, in this case, he didn't. So that was very funny. I kind of have enough imagination that I know the other side of the ballet must be just as good. But the building itself is magnificent. So even if whatever you're seeing is not, you still have these beautiful, beautiful staircases. And sometimes there's even ballet going on the staircase. So some choreography is even including this grand vista of a building. And when you're inside the actual hall, this is what you see. This is a ceiling painted by the artist Chagall. So Marc Chagall painted a new floating angel kind of ceiling to the opera house. And when you're sitting on the right side, you can see what the people in the first row can see in these loges. And then you can see on the left that it goes four deep. So if there are two people sitting in front of you and two more people sitting in front of you, and you got that last little chair, then you have to make friends with these people very quickly and say, oh, it's so kind of you, because they're all very, very caring. So they all put their heads aside a little bit so that you in the back can actually see. Now, there's also a chaise longue. There's also a sofa in the back, so it's even a little deeper, this place. And people used to go to the opera and sometimes not spend time with the opera, but spend time with their lover. And so they would sit in the back on the sofa and have a little tete-a-tete. So this is what the opera was always for in Paris. There's French amour. Okay, so here's one of the beautiful bridges, and I don't know which one it is, so I'm going to beg off, but I know the other day I said that it was, one was the Pont Neuf, and it wasn't, and the Pont Neuf, the new bridge, is actually the oldest bridge in Paris. So who knows which one this is? Does anybody of you all know? No? Okay, then it's fine. It's one of the pretty bridges. So one of them is very, very old, and the other ones are newer, so. Okay. If you want to start the day off, you can start that with gyro. gyros, or you can start it with pancakes. You never know what's going to come your way in terms of appetite, but you can always get something fabulous everywhere in Paris, and that's where I usually go. This is a pâtissier, so I liked this because of the beautiful glass paintings on the outside, and I don't even know if I ventured in, but I just loved the scenario. So this is in the Marais. You can see all the top, it says Marais, M-A-R-A-I-S, and this is one of the pastry shops there. And this is one of the beautiful old, you come across all these beautiful old interiors of restaurants, and I favor restaurants and bistros with tablecloths, so that's just my own taste, and there we are. So, I'm sorry? Do comment. I'm really happy if you do, because I can't see you. Okay. This is the church that is no longer available right now. As you probably all know, there was a fire in the Notre Dame. So on the beautiful island where the Notre Dame stands, right now you can see the outside facade, just like I did here. And there are church services. I don't know how much is open again, but it is all something that we miss dearly when we can't go somewhere. So this is the Notre Dame. This is my very favorite church in Paris. This is the Sainte-Chapelle. And the Sainte-Chapelle, the Saint Chapel, is a beautiful little Gothic church. And it is tall and skinny. And so when you go into it regularly, you go in from the very bottom and you go into the lower church, and it has very low ceilings with deep blue ceiling, deep blue low vaults, and they have little gold stars. And then as you walk the tour, you're actually going on a spiral staircase up into this hall. And when you see this in the daylight, go online, have other looks at this. It's endless, beautiful blue windows, I'm sorry. And this is a situation where I actually bought myself a ticket to a Vivaldi concert that was happening in the summer. So in the front, you see actually a group of musicians playing Vivaldi. It was very, very beautiful. And this is the Christmas time. This is the Grand Magasin, the all the department stores. This is Boulevard Haussmann, and this boulevard has Galerie Lafayette with several buildings in length, and then you have the Printemps that we talked about before at the Louvre. The main building of the Printemps is right next door to the Galerie Lafayette. You keep following along, and at Christmas time, they're gorgeous window displays. And those of you who know your New York City and window displays, you can, sort of same thing happens in Paris. They're just beautifully lit up and shown. The nice thing about the Printemps, for those of you who don't know, is it has an outdoor space. You can go up an, I think, an elevator, escalator. But this space here is a restaurant, and it's not that known for tourists, and it is only reachable through the escalators. You have to go, there's no elevator, you have to go all the escalators, and it's 3 or 4 floors, and then you can come up to this space. And so there's mostly Parisians there having lunch, and I just love looking up at the cupola and looking at all this beautiful stained glass. And when you're sitting in front of your sorbet, like me, because I eat gluten-free, then you can look at your table, and if you look down, you can see the cupola above you. So that's a really nice where to have coffee and have lunch. If you keep walking on Boulevard Haussmann, and I did not know that for a long time, here is a small private museum, and it's called the Musée Jacquemart-André. And it's an old villa, and the couple were philanthropists and loved the arts. And so that we have their actual building where they lived, the little chateau, and you can see on the left, this is actually what it looks like. And there's still a place outside where you can have lunch and have coffee on one of the little porches. And otherwise inside, it's just this gorgeous, display of art on the inside. But there was also a Mary Cassatt show that I went to see there. And upstairs are rooms where, this is the downstairs where they lived. And so they lived with a lot of art themselves. And upstairs is this more plain, used to probably be the bedrooms, and upstairs are then changing shows. So this is not the Pont Neuf, this is the Pont Alexandre III, which is what I had not realized. And I guess if you look at the lantern, it's probably the other one that I showed you in the dark, in the dusk. So the lanterns look the same. So it's probably the Pont Alexandre, and that is a very old bridge also in Paris. And across from it on the left, you might wonder what this is. Does anybody know? This is, you get a gold star if you say it right. Who lives there? Who died?
Napoleon.
Napoleon. Thank you so much. Okay, so if you go all the way to the end, Napoleon, and in that area is also the Musée Rodin. So if you are a Rodin fan, in that same vista is also the little museum, the house where Rodin has a lot of sculptures. And they recently did, by the way, a beautiful fashion show for the House of Dior. And the American artist Judy Chicago actually created the tent, and it was a womb, ladies and gentlemen. And so it was a big round thing, and you could walk in and see lots of fashions. That was the newest fashion show in 2020 of Judy Chicago, one of my favorite artists. And she now just turned 80, and she's one of the feminist artists of the 1970s. So she made the Dior fashion show this year. Not the fashions, but the vista where it was. So all in this general area. And this is very close to the Petit Palais. It's right across from that. So you can actually walk across the bridge and then come to this other area on the other side of the Seine. And if you go across, you find bouquinistes, which are these wonderful big boxes here, the little stores, and they'll open the boxes in the afternoons usually, and then they display postcards and all sundry things for tourists. And lovers of books, by the way, because they also have a lot of old books. This is the Musée d'Orsay, which was an old train station, and it is across from the Louvre. So if you're looking across the Seine River, catty corner, there is this beautiful museum now, and it has all the Impressionist artists in it in a lot darker areas than they used to be. They used to be at the end of the end of the Louvre. There were these two huge buildings towards the park, and they had a glorious sunshine in them, but that's probably not good to keep paintings. And so it has changed to this museum, and they're all displayed. And you can see on the top on either side there are arches, and there are part of the building there are smaller galleries in which you can then see the different changing exhibitions and permanent exhibitions. And at the end is a clock, but there are more clocks in this building because it's a train station, so people have to know the time, right? So here is a huge Courbet painting. Some of the things in your art history books are right there. It's so funny to come across these things and then say, wow, this is the actual art that we expect to see, I don't know where, and here it is in the Jeu de Paume in Paris. And this is the dining hall, and this was the first class dining hall for the first class passengers. There were other dining halls in this train station, but this is the old one. And so you can see the glorious sort of, 19th century, late 19th century work of making it look a little older than it was, but glorious in its top. And the waiters are so excited because now they have these contemporary plastic chairs at the bottom, and they're very funky looking, and it's not my taste, so I photograph up. But it's everybody's, everybody has a different idea about things. So this is the top, another clock on the outside of the train station. Across from it is actually the Louvre Palace. You can see the museum, and on the left you can see what this restaurant looks like. I have no idea how that looks like now. I would say that I've seen some pictures of, I should have incorporated that, but I saw a cafe in Paris where they had these giant teddy bears sitting next to you. So they had the two chairs next to you had giant teddy bears, and so it was social distancing with teddy bears, and they were very, very large. So this is Louvre. If you're going out on the balcony of this museum, you can look across to the other museum and see the park and the museum. So this is the Café de Flore, one of the most famous cafes in Paris, and still very, very much frequented and beautiful. So This is one of the metro stations, and it has a lot of copper, as you can see, and it is very close to an area where if you don't take this as a changing of trains, you end up in a huge amount of people. So I like to go here and change trains, and then I only have one stop left to go to the Centre Pompidou. So, and here we are at the Centre Pompidou, and this is a fountain below that was created by a couple of artists, Niki Saint-Phal, who was known for big round pregnant figures with lots of pop art colors on them, and then she had hearts, and if you look down carefully there's a hat and a heart, and so we have this fountain, and her husband Yves Tinguely was known for mechanical things, so he created the mechanics around them so that they spew water and they turn when this fountain is actually on. In the winter it's drained, so this is a summer picture, and that's what it does. It not only spews the water, but it also twists and turns. All of these things are kinetic art. And this is the building from the outside. This is a Calder sculpture. Calder is known as the father of mobile art, and we all hang that over a baby's crib, but when you see it at this size, there's a Calder in the National Gallery in Washington, D.C., and when something that weighs a ton and looks very light in its movement is above your head, it creates all kinds of different feelings. I don't know how babies feel when they have this stuff above them, but when they become this large, in the National Gallery, the Calder that is hanging there, it actually has a motor that moves it because it's so difficult to see otherwise. This is the escalator that goes all the way up to the top, where you can then see these wonderful other rooftops, and this is what it looks like within the tube as you walk up. And then you can go see the rest of Paris from there, so it's always a nice place to take pictures. And a lot of these buildings are new, by the way. They're from the 70s. So this whole area was an area of old market halls, and so they tore all those down, another piece of Paris gone, and they created a whole new kind of trying to fit into the rest of the architecture area with more modern buildings. Yeah. Up at the top, you have some permanent collections of 1950s furniture on the right. I'm not sure if this was a changing exhibit, could be. And then we have, this is Delaunay. I don't know if it's he or she, but they both painted with a lot of circles and colors and ended up in America. I think the Delaunays, I'm not 100% sure, but I know some of the European artists also created and also taught in America, so that was nice. These are children, and the French museums are filled with little kids. Everybody takes their kids and their whole school classes, and she looks like she has a little sign on her, so I'm thinking this was one of those kindergartens out on tour. And they're very, very good little kids that sit there and listen to whatever the teacher has to say about the art or the people in the museum. And this is a Picabia painting, one of my favorite artists. So. And those of you who have never seen this, this is, gentlemen, you probably can recognize what this is, yes? It's turned on its side, and it's called Fountain. So it's really talking about the reverse of what it actually does, right? And so this is a piece called Fountain by Marcel Duchamp. And in 1913, he exhibited this, and he was an artist who used ready-made things from industrial production and turned them by naming them differently and by setting them up differently, like a bicycle wheel montaged onto a stool, made it into sculpture. And of course, it was an outrage. People were outraged when somebody signs a urinal and then decides to call it art. But ever since then, people have used industrial parts to create art. And here's a hat rack. And so he did a lot of these things. And these are part of the permanent collection of the museum now. So art changed. Outside, you can buy anything and everything. There are lots of little shops. And so this is the area around this big museum. The museum in the 70s, everybody sort of made fun of it because it looked like tubes and, you know, it looked like a construction site, and they have gotten really used to this beautiful space. And if you're at the top of the space on the right, you can have coffee. And on the bottom, if you ask for a carafe, une carafe, and of course the waiter's going to be sly and say to you, a carafe of what? And you say then a carafe of water, and then it is free. It is Parisian water, and it's lovely and very tasty, and it doesn't cost anything with your meal. So then I went to a Dior exhibition. This was a retrospective, and it was the most gorgeous, beautiful thing in the Museum of the Decorative Arts. And so there were lights, and this was all moving, and it's very, very pretty to see what Dior created in the 40s all the way up to the present day. Then art directors change almost yearly, but every time a very gorgeous collection. And I paint and get inspired by what my mother did herself. She created a lot of couture. And so right now I'm painting my mom, and that is the end of this show. So I thank you very much. And I hope you had a good time. Thank you.
That was lovely, Suzanne. I've always wanted to go to Paris. It's on my bucket list. So at least this was the next best thing for me until I actually get the chance to physically do so. Any questions from anybody who's on right now?
Suzanne, we're watching
Yes.
Tour de France. Have you ever seen them when they're going around the Champs-Elysees?
Yes, sure. I've seen him plenty of times. I mean, I have never been there for that. But yes, they do that. And they, you know, are you in Tampa Bay?
No, we're in Ontario, near Toronto.
Ah, oh, lovely. Okay, well, well, hopefully you're safe. That's really nice. The St. Petersburg, Florida, does a race through in the middle of town, and they put a lot of barriers, concrete barriers up, and they have, you know, almost Formula One type of racing. So, you know, I think that the bicycles sound less dangerous when you're blocking off a street like that. But I have once done something in the Champs-Elysees that most people, once you've done it, I think you don't want to do it again. And it's almost like going to New York and freezing yourself off at New Year's Eve. But if you go, I always wanted to, there was always a lot of trash on the streets the next day after the 1st of January. And I said, I want to be there with all these people celebrating. And it's loud. And not only that, but the people seem to know when there's a firecracker or something going off, and they all jump out of a circle. And if you don't jump with them, you're going to be right in the middle of the noise. So I will never do that again, but it was interesting.
Suzanne, what's the best way, as a tourist, what's the best way to navigate Paris?
Well, I buy myself, there are things to do that you can that are fun. You buy yourself a metro ticket for 3 days or however many days you want to be there. So you keep using the same ticket, and you don't have to worry for buses and metros. So you've got this public transportation. Now, I think it is now also paired with and you buy that at the train station when you arrive. I'm not sure what the airport probably sells them to, but you also want to buy yourself a ticket for 3 days or 4 days, however long you're there, for the museums, because there are a lot of interesting city museums. The Musée Carnavalet is the city museum of Paris. A lot of people don't find their way to it. There's a museum for Picasso. There's a beautiful, somebody told me that there was a fabulous, what was it? Was it Impressionists, or it was something right outside this.
The Impressionist one is wonderful too.
But there is Yes, but that's the Orsay has a lot of that. So, but there is one outside of the city that somebody told me, and I wanted to say maybe it wasn't Rodin, but it was something where all of a sudden you wouldn't think of this museum, you know. So yeah, but those are the things to do. And then I always look on hotels.com. I shouldn't be, you know, endorsing one or another, but I do like that site in order to get a hotel, and it's a gamble in the sense that I look for a cheap hotel and I hope for the best that they have either a room for me not too high up on the stairs, and I always tell them I have bad knees, so they're very kind. And otherwise, they usually don't have an ascenseur, an elevator, those that have the price that is so good. You know, I'm not going to use the spa at the hotel, so I'm really not interested in a lot of the amenities a hotel has. I want the atmosphere of the city, you know, and get home safely. That's important. But I also end up in neighborhoods that you'd never know where you're going to be. And the Montmartre area is as I said, sort of colorful area of Paris. And either you find 150 million Bangladeshis around the train station, and that's apparently their neighborhood, or they just like to hang out there. Since I've been to Bangladesh, I know that people just like to hang out in Bangladesh, and they do it all over the place. And there's 2,000 people per square mile in Bangladesh. So it's a little bit different in Paris. But the last time I ended up in Little Africa. So that was very cool because as you pass people, they're not interested in you as a customer for whatever they're selling. And it got to be sometimes a little interesting if you did stop and wonder what it was being sold. But it was fun. I went into the next bistro and sat down, and there was 3 seats, and one was a little girl doing her homework, and I gave a little English lesson. So, you know, whatever you do, you have to just go with the flow.
What do you find is the best time of year to go?
Well, that's, take an umbrella and a pair of sunglasses when you travel. And so I like the fall. I would say the fall is the nicest time when people are back in town. If you go in the summer, all you're going to meet is tourists because they all go to their summer houses, and the Parisians are not in town. So spring is good and fall is good, but the summer itself it was 104 degrees the last time I was there. So it gets pretty hot.
I know from experience, one time you shouldn't go when it's strike, and not on frequent. Oh,
well, no, because the strike days are actually set up. So you know exactly when they are. They say ahead of time, those are going to be the strike days. So you're right. That's a little trickier. So your days get compressed a little bit more. I say, okay, if they're going to strike on Thursday and Friday, I might as well go Monday to Wednesday. And then I go back. But you also have to remember the museums in Paris are closed on Tuesdays. And most other museums are closed on Mondays. So they always said Tuesday is the Versailles Day because the Castle of Versailles outside of Paris is open on Tuesdays and the museums are closed. So you take a train out to Versailles and take a nice tour there and walk through the beautiful gardens. So you have things to do on days when you can't. I head to the opera right away. I buy myself tickets for the first and the second night, and then I'm done with my evenings. Unless it's the summer and I really can't, there is no opera. And it's sort of July, August, that sort of area of time. And then I found myself, as I said, that concert of Vivaldi in the Sainte-Chapelle, which was glorious. So I made a mistake of going to the Lido, which I do not recommend to anybody who is really, I mean, it was so clinically set up, you could just watch TV. I mean, and I had to drink with my ticket a half a bottle of champagne, and I'd only had a sandwich. Don't do that. You have to go back home to your hotel with a staircase, maybe 5 floors up, and you have to make it down to the metro with a staircase.
Wow.
David, you can speak to that, right?
You know, they do have the double-decker buses now to some degree in Paris, and which makes it very nice because the traffic is ungodly. Don't get in a taxi because you won't move. But on
Um,
those buses, the bus is moving, you can see things from up above.
Right, but it doesn't have to be,
Nice.
you can take a regular city bus, Mary.
Right.
You do not
Yeah.
have to take a tourist bus. And I would
That's what I
rather
mean,
be with
like
regular
double-
people. Yeah,
No, but even the double-decker buses are not, they're just regular buses, and you
Sure.
can sit up on top and see the city from up
Okay.
above, rather than
Exactly.
seeing it from the side
That-
view of a taxi cab.
Oh no, I would never take a cab. But it was funny because my last hotel was 3 metros. I had to change metros a lot with my little suitcase, and I really didn't want to go up and down because you have to keep going a lot of stairs within that. And so I asked at the hotel on the last day, do you think, is there a bus that goes to the train station? And they said, oh yeah, it's right around the corner. so, so I took myself to the corner with the bus, and it took 40 minutes to get to the train station. So you have to bring
Okay.
extra time for that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Suzanne, so much. That was a nice trip, a nice
Okay.
visit to Paris.
Well, you're very
Really
welcome.
appreciate it.
And I hope those of you who've seen it we're not bored, and that, my travelers are so seasoned. No, I'm in this travel group, and everybody there just knows their way around the world. I'm always in awe.
No,
So
that was really nice. For our club members, a couple dates that I want to bring up. October 15th is our next general member meeting, and we are having our annual visit from our district governor. So that will be October 15th, a Thursday at 7 p.m. with DG Jeannie Germain. And then November 19th, our own lovely Brad Robinson and his wife will be giving a presentation, and that should be fun. I'll send out more information on that. Anything else before we sign off? Once again, Suzanne, thank you.
you're
Well,
very
thank you
welcome.
very much.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Revisiting Paris.
Thank you for coming to Paris with me.
Let's do it again.
Okay, this time I'm going to do the new pictures, and I'm going to make 2 presentations out of 1, because this obviously doesn't work. You can't overload a presentation. What I showed you was enough, and as I said, some people have already heard this in French, and I'm trying my best to make something new, but I've learned from this as well. So
These webinars are wonderful.
all right, well, thank you very
Great.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And for those in the e-club, let's go ahead and do the 4-way test before we sign off. So if anybody wants to unmute themselves, or you can just stay muted, and we'll go ahead and Suzanne and I can do the test.
Well, is it the truth?
Yeah, is it the truth? Is it fair to all
Fair to all
concerned?
concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Is it beneficial to all concerned?
Right.
All right. Thank you all. Good seeing everyone. And I'm also open for our club members if you have other ideas for future projects. In December, I forgot to mention, in December, we are going to have a holiday, quote, holiday celebration. So, and then I've got Will here scheduled for May for a disaster preparedness talk.
For
So
May of next year?
for May of next year, that'll be right before the hurricane season starts in
Yeah,
June.
that's
So
good. Yeah.
we both talked. I mean, he's had his lovely heart incident and chipped a tooth. And yesterday was his birthday, by the way. So
Oh, happy birthday, Will. We're very happy you.
I'm old. I'm officially older than dirt.
Well, did we want to know this?
he's still here, and I'm very, very thankful.
I think we all are, and your dog's happy too. I'm
Yeah.
always happy. Yeah. So I'm curious. What I wanted to also mention that I have also gone to Cuba. Has any one of you gone to Cuba?
Yes.
Okay, James has gone to Cuba, and how long did you go there?
About 15 years ago.